Hi, my name is Corey, and I have the honor and the privilege of bringing the Devotionable to you today. 5-minute devotions for busy people. Today we're going to be talking about Acts chapter 12, verses 6 through 19. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to read it together, and then we're going to talk a little bit of some history information, and then we're going to make one point, and we're going to send you on your way. Okay, church? Great. Let's begin. Verse 6. And when Herod was about to bring him out, that night Peter was sleeping, bound with 2 chains between 2 soldiers, and the guards before the door were keeping the prison. Now behold, an angel of the Lord stood by him, and the light shone in the prison. And he struck Peter in the side and raised him up, saying, Arise quickly. And the chains fell off his hands. Then the angel said to him, Gird yourself and tie on your sandals. So he did. And he said to him, Put on your garment and follow me. So he went out and followed him, and he did not know that what was done by the angel was real, but thought he was seeing a vision. When they had passed the first and the second guard post, they came to the iron gate the iron gate that leads to the city, which opened to them on its own accord. And they went out and went down one street, and immediately the angel departed from him. And when Peter had come to himself, he said, Now I know for certain that the Lord has sent his angel and has delivered me from the hand of Herod and from all the expectations of the Jewish people. So when he had considered this, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. It's important. They were praying. And as Peter knocked on the door of the gate, a girl named Rhoda came to answer. And when she recognized Peter's voice, because of her gladness, she did not open the gate, but ran in and announced that Peter stood before the gate. But they said to her, You are beside yourself. Yet she kept insisting that it was so. And they said, It is his angel. Now Peter continued knocking, and when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. But motioning to them with his hand to keep silent, he declared to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, Go tell these things to James and to the brethren. And he departed and went to another place. Then as soon as it was day, there was a small stir among the soldiers about what had become of Peter. But when Herod had searched for him and not found him, he examined the guards and commanded that they should be put to death. And then he went down to Judea and Caesarea and stayed there. All right, it's kind of a long story, but it's a fantastic story. A couple of things. So we're reading that story, right? And we're saying to ourselves, yeah, I know that, I remember vaguely hearing that Peter had been in prison. So I guess if we were doing a Bible quiz, the first question I would ask is, how many times has Peter been arrested, right? So if we're looking at Acts, if we look at Acts 4, we look at Acts 5, and we look at Acts 12, we can see that Peter has a propensity for getting arrested. That's his thing, right? And so he's getting arrested. So this is not the first time we've read this, right? And, another question is, wow, the angel of the Lord has released him from prison. And again, if we read in chapter 5 of Acts, we find out that, again, this is not the first time that this has happened, right? So this is, it's not any less significant, but I'm telling you this because it's important to see that there is a pattern developing here. The other thing that I want to talk about is it's mentioned Herod, right? And we hear that name a lot when we read in the New Testament. And so I've asked people about Herod, and they say, "Oh yeah, he's this guy, he's this king." But how many different Herods are mentioned in the Bible? Here's another Bible question. Do you know? The answer is 6. Right? There are 6 times that Herod is mentioned in the Bible. I mean, it's a different kind of, or a different Herod. So let me put it in perspective for you. When Jesus is born, they're talking about Herod the Great, okay? And then he has kids and sons and brothers, and you can find out the genealogy on your own, but you can trust me on this when I say when Jesus is on trial, it's another Herod, and that's the Herod Antipas, okay? So it's a different Herod, same name. So it just kind of gives us a timeline. Now we've got a couple more mixed in there. And then the last one, or that we're going to talk about, is Herod. And it tells us here Herod, and it's Herod Agrippa. That's the Herod we're talking about here, right? So the same name, different dudes along the way. So now here we have Herod. And if we read earlier in the chapter, we find out that Herod kills James, right? One of the disciples. He kills him. He cuts his head off. He met the sword. And so Herod now is trying to find favor with the Jewish people. And so he sees that he's gained a little favor with them by killing James. So what does he do? He immediately goes out and he grabs Peter and he puts him in jail, right? Now, it's Passover time, so they can't kill him. They have to wait for the festival to finish, and then they're going to take care of business, right? They're going to kill him. So now when we read in chapter 4 and chapter 5, when Peter's arrested, there is a significant difference between the way he was arrested before versus what's happening now. And what that is that the Sanhedrin, the Jewish political religious power, the ones that arrested him. Now we know that they can't put anybody to death, right? So as a result, I'm sure Peter's arrested. He's in jail. He's going through whatever he's going through. But I'm sure in the middle of his heart, he knows they're not going to kill me. And why do we know that? Why do I say that? Well, because if we go back to John chapter 21, when Jesus and Peter are having a conversation right at the end. Now, you might remember the conversation this way when he says, "Do you love me, Peter? Take care of my sheep." Remember that? He has that exchange with him. Well, at the very end, Jesus tells him, "You are not going to die as a young man. You're going to die as an old man." And it kind of gives him a little bit understanding of how he's going to die. But he is going to die, right? We know that. So I think Peter is confident the first two times, but now it's different because he's been arrested by Rome. And we know from the Gospels that Rome definitely has the power to kill, and they can do it at will. And so now he's in prison, and he's been captured by the Romans, and he pretty much knows, since James has been beheaded, that something's going to happen to him, and it's coming. So he's in jail. Festival is going to end the next day, and what happens? The angel of the Lord comes, right, and releases him. And it tells us that he kind of punches him, right? He's got to wake him up because he's fast asleep. Now I want you to think about this, church. You're about to be killed. You're in prison. What are you going to do? You would be, I would be up, and I would be thinking, and I would be praying. I would be doing all these things. And what is Peter doing? He's sleeping. He's sleeping. He gets nuts. He doesn't even realize that what's happening. He thinks it's a dream, right? Or he's having some kind of vision until finally when he's out, he realizes, oh my gosh, here's where we're at, right? This has really happened. And what does he do? He runs to the other Christians. Now, we didn't read verse 5, but I'm going to read it for you because this is the only point that I want to make for this, is this. In verse 5, it says, now we know that he's in prison. It says, Peter was therefore kept in prison. We know that. But constant prayer was offered to God for him by the church. So I want you to think about this. The church is literally praying constantly, nonstop for him. They're engaged in prayer for his release, for whatever. I mean, we don't know, but we know that they're in constant prayer. Now, if you were in, and this is where it comes to full circle for me, and I want to share that with you, is on Wednesday night, we are going through the book, the Dr. Cook, Chuck Lawless book, and the name of the book is Victory Over the Enemy, right? And last week we're doing chapter 7. I don't want to date the video. However, it was a really good chapter. And sorry if I do that, but one of the things that we talked about was the armor of God. Why is that important? Because one of the armors that, or one of the things that we need to put on is prayer, right? And I want to quote, now follow me on this, I want to quote Lawless, who's quoting Cole from his book, okay? And it says this, it says, the armor of God is not enough without the God of the armor, and prayer is the link. So I want to tell you, and it's from his book, Against the Darkness. But why do I say that? Well, we read in Ephesians 18, right? We read in Ephesians 18 that prayer is what's needed. So I want to share that with you. Ephesians 18 says this. It says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to the end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. Why do I think that's important? Well, I think it's important because that's what God commands us to do. We see plenty of examples of where God has a plan for us, and whatever that plan is, think about Jonah. Go that way, he goes that way. Well, guess what? You're going to go that way. We see Peter here. He's being arrested no matter what. We're going to kill you. We're going to do this. Well, no, that's not my plan. We're going to let you out and we're going to go. But what's constant in all of these things is prayer. Now, one of the questions we ask, and I want to ask you this, is when people say your name or they think about you, do you want them to think of you as a prayer warrior? A person who is going to pray no matter what, for everyone, all the time? I would encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to read the story, and I hope you have a wonderful day.